Hello and welcome to the DXi-Series Introduction and Walkthrough presentation. My name is David Mason and I work on the training and documentation team here at Quantum. This presentation should give you a high-level overview of the DXi family of systems. We will cover some key core concepts, walk through the graphic user interface, and address some best practices. In the event that you need quantum technical support for your DXi, we will cover how to get them the proper information so that your system is back up and fully functioning as quickly as possible. So let's start by first covering some DXi core concepts. The core concepts that we will cover are the purpose of deploying a DXi system or systems, presentation types for how to store your data, deduplication, replication, and finally, DXi Accent Software. The main purpose of a DXi system is to serve as a location for your data backup and archive. DXi systems are typically deployed in a multi-site configuration and have a wide range of usable capacity. Presentation options available consist of VTL, OST, and NAS. DXi systems support all major backup applications and contain integrated tape library support. DXi systems fit a disaster recovery plan well by automating off-site replication to disk and allowing rapid data reconstruction and restoration. Since the DXi system is a disk-based backup system, it is a fast recovery option. Some DXi systems are even virtual, such as the V1000 or 4000. Features and concepts are the same with virtual systems, but they may have different configurations that you would need to consider. Virtual systems are ideally deployed in satellite offices. What a DXi is not is primary storage. Again, the system is geared towards data backup and archive, not the immediate day-to-day typical storage access needs. Here is a very basic example of a multi-site deployment. On the left, we have a remote office and a satellite office, which are pretty much the same thing, but one office has physical hardware and the other has a virtual DXi deployed for its needs. Those two then replicate to the main data center where a larger DXi resides. To better protect against a disaster, the data is also replicated to an off-site location. The three presentation types available in a DXi are VTL, NAS, and OST. VTL, or Virtual Tape Library, is based on a fiber channel connection. This allows the DXi to create a virtual library with virtual drives, slots, and tapes. NAS, or Network Attached Storage, is based on an Ethernet connection where shares are created via a NAS mount point. Finally, we have OST, or Open Storage, which works over Ethernet as well. This is more specific for net backup via Symantec, where LSUs or logical storage units are created. I've mentioned deduplication, and at a high level, it's a pretty simple concept with some very smart technology behind it. Essentially, you only store a block of data once. When a similar block or sequence of data shows up again to be stored, a pointer is created rather than the same block of data being written again. The more repetitive the data, the more pointers you get, and the higher data reduction you can achieve. This takes up less space and can reduce your data stored by as much as 90%. This means that when data is replicated to another DXi, only the unique data needs to be replicated, which saves again on storage but also saves on bandwidth. So once your data is deduplicated, it can then be replicated. Replication is when a DXi creates a copy of its data on another DXi system at scheduled intervals or even manually. Only the unique deduplicated blocks of data are transferred, and the data that already exists on the target is not sent again. Should a data loss disaster scenario ever occur, data can quickly be replicated from a remote system back to the source system for a full recovery. Replication occurs on the DXi system in two stages. First, unique blocks of data are sent from the source DXi to the target DXi. Next, metadata is sent from the source DXi to the target DXi, allowing the block pool at the target to reflect the current data state of the share or partition. There are two replication types that are supported with the VTL and NAS presentation types: continuous namespace replication and cartridge file-based replication. Continuous namespace replication is replication at the VTL partition and NAS share level. It creates a point-in-time snapshot for recovering a VTL partition or NAS share. Cartridge file-based replication is replication at the tape cartridge and file directory data level. Data is immediately available for use after automatic recovery, and if a file is removed on the source DXi, it is automatically removed on the target DXi. What replication type is best for your data depends on what features you want. If you want a disaster recovery image, continuous namespace allows for several versions or snapshots, while cartridge file-based replication is a mirror of the source. Regarding a restore process, continuous namespace replication requires a recovery job to run on the target before data is ready to use. However, using cartridge file-based replication, data on the target is always ready for use and no recovery job is needed. Regarding synchronization with disaster recovery, continuous namespace replication uses scheduled namespace or manual sync. Cartridge file-based replication is automatically triggered per cartridge or file. Manual sync is also available. Included with your DXi is a license to DXi Accent Software. DXi Accent enables a hybrid or collaborative approach to deduplication that uses variable length deduplication for the most effective data reduction. DXi Accent accelerates backups where network bandwidth is the limiting factor, while limiting the impact on the backup server and maintaining DXi features such as deduplication. This can be enabled or disabled on individual media servers if necessary. The family of DXi products each give you access to a powerful web-based user interface that allows you to configure and manage the system from a remote workstation on the same network as the system. Let's take a quick walkthrough to better familiarize ourselves with it. To log in and access a DXi system, open a browser and navigate to the IP address of the system. Once logged into the system, the System Overview page will appear. Let's break down the different areas of the GUI prior to diving any deeper. At the top is a persistent bar of information known as the System Banner, which will appear regardless of where you are in the GUI. On the far left, you will see the type of DXi system you are accessing. This is mostly helpful for those accessing multiple systems, such as a DXi 4700 and then a DXi 6900. Next up is the System Status button. You can click on the Status button for further information. Currently, this system shows a status of normal with a soothing shade of green. Another possible state would be Attention, colored yellow, meaning that there is a problem with the system. There are additional states such as low space, critical reserve space, no space, and verify failure. Next up is the current date and time that the DXi is currently set to. Quantum recommends that you configure the DXi to use a Network Time Protocol or NTP server for the date and time setting. You can set the date and time manually, but it must be synchronized with other devices in your data center for the DXi to function properly. Moving right along, you have the Admin, Ticket, and Low Capacity buttons. Again, I say buttons because you can click on them for further information. The Admin button will turn yellow when an administrative alert has occurred. The Ticket button will turn yellow when an open service ticket is present. The Low Capacity button turns yellow when available disk space falls to a low level and the DXi enters a low space state. When you're ready to log out of the system, that option is always available at the top. Second to last, the user and user's role are listed at the top. Finally, there is a Help drop-down menu available. This menu gives you instant access to the local help via the Help Contents button, or if internet access is available, you can visit the online documentation. Also available is the About button, which can provide you with what version of software is currently on the system and the build information. This information is also readily available on the System Overview screen. Along the left-hand side of the window are different sections of the GUI. While I won't go into great detail on each one specifically, let's take a closer look at these sections. Just beneath Home is Replication. As I have mentioned, a DXi system provides data replication capabilities that you can use as an integral part of a disaster recovery plan. Replication can be configured on the DXi to create a copy of your data on another DXi system at scheduled intervals or manually as needed. The next section is Status, which defaults to the System Hardware Status page. Drill down to your heart's content on any particular component, but know that green means that the hardware is functioning normally. Attention, shown as yellow, indicates that something needs attention. If you see a red Failed notice, some component in the hardware has failed. Again, under the Status menu, the Activity log shows a 90-day record of all activities performed by anyone accessing the system. Moving from left to right, the log shows who performed a specific activity, at what time, point of origin, what action was taken, and much more. Should you wish to, you can download the log as an XML file. Under the Alert section, you will find Admin Alerts and Service Tickets. These sections are also reached by clicking on the buttons along the top of the GUI. Administration alerts are issued when the condition of the system changes. For example, the system goes from an offline to an online state, or the lack of an Ethernet port connection is detected. Right now, since I have at least one alert on this system, my Alerts button is yellow. You can even configure the system to email you when an admin alert is issued. So for those of us who don't get nearly enough email, here's one way to get more. A DXi system can automatically detect and resolve some problems encountered during operation. However, if a problem can't be resolved automatically and it requires user intervention or servicing, the system generates a service ticket. A service ticket contains detailed information about the problem and, if appropriate, steps to resolve it. Service tickets come in 3 priority levels: low, middle, and high. Low, meaning that a minor problem occurred and needs to be resolved. These tickets often mean that the operation and performance of the DXi are not significantly affected. Middle or medium tickets mean that a serious problem occurred and needs to be resolved, but not necessarily immediately. At this level of severity, the operation and performance of the DXi may be degraded. Finally, a high ticket indicates that a critical problem has occurred and needs to be resolved immediately. The operation and performance of the DXi are degraded, and the risk of system failure is imminent. High alerts automatically generate a service ticket. Again, you can also configure your system to email you notifications when alerts and tickets occur, which we will cover shortly. While the configuration of each DXi is unique to your particular deployment, let's cover a couple of areas under this menu item. To automate and simplify tasks performed by your DXi, you can just schedule them to occur at set times and dates. Tasks such as replication, replication throttling, emailed reports, system health checks, and space reclamation can be scheduled. Users specify when an event should occur, with the DXi automatically performing the task at the scheduled time. Events could occur just once or at defined intervals. However, you should avoid scheduling resource-intensive tasks simultaneously. On the Scheduler page in the GUI, all of the events are colorfully shown on the timeline. Tasks are organized on the left-hand side by type, and by right-clicking on an event, you can edit a single instance of an event, all instances of the event, delete the single event, or delete the whole thing. There are no minimum gaps between events, but like I mentioned, don't schedule resource-intensive tasks too close together or even at the same time. You also have the ability to drill down to a daily outlook or back out to a weekly or even monthly display. The email page allows you to specify the recipients to notify by email when administration alerts or service tickets occur. You can specify email recipients, notification levels, and information about your email configuration. You can also configure the DXi to generate and send configuration and status reports. In this section, you can add or modify email recipients and specify what level of alerts or tickets they are notified about. When you correctly configure these email notifications, you ensure that emails about critical situations in your DXi are promptly sent to Quantum Technical Support and to yourself. Be aware that setting low and medium level service tickets to send you email notifications can result in more emails than you may want to receive. The Utilities section helps you to perform maintenance tasks on the DXi, such as generating and downloading diagnostic files, analyzing disk and network performance, managing space reclamation, and securely erasing the system. You can also install license keys, upgrade the system software, and reboot or shut down the DXi. The Wizard section will provide guided assistance for setting up and configuring the DXi system. Should you want to blaze your own trail, you can always use the sections located above the Wizards button to configure things manually. NAS, VTL, OST, replication, users, email alerts, and system support wizards are available via this menu item. Back out to the System Overview page, the Map menu option delivers you to a page displaying all of the various sections and subsections found within the DXi GUI. I find this to be an easy way to navigate to a specific area very quickly. Hovering over a specific link will display a tooltip with more information about that particular section. Finally, advanced reporting can be accessed from this side menu as well. We will discuss advanced reporting in further detail a little later. Something very helpful on every page is the yellow Help text or button located at the top of any page you navigate to. This Help button acts differently than the Help button located at the top in the system banner. This Help button provides contextual help based on the page you are currently on. I find this very helpful because it takes me to information related to exactly what I am looking at. Now to the meat of the System Overview page. It is broken down into 5 sections: overall system information, disk usage, data reduction statistics, replication send and receive statistics, and current activity. Let's take a closer look at each section. First up, the overall system information section. Let's zoom in so we can see things a little easier. Here you can quickly find the host name, IP address, software version of your system, the serial number, and if data at rest encryption is enabled or disabled on this system. When contacting Quantum Support, this information will be great to have on hand. If you click on the software upgrade link, your system will display the software upgrade utility. You can see when the system last checked for the latest software here as well. Moving back out to the system overview, we move on to the disk usage section. At a glance, you can see your overall disk capacity as well as the available disk space. Should you wish to see more information, click the blue hyperlink at the bottom to add additional details to the window. Worth noting here is the question mark icon found throughout the GUI. These icons can be clicked on for contextual information and descriptions of that particular item. Back out to the system overview, we move to the Data Reduction Statistics section. Just like before, you can choose to see more information. Should you ever want to dive deeper into a particular item, such as data size before reduction, all of the text shown on the system overview page can be clicked on for even more information. Other sections on the system overview page are the replication send and receive statistics and current activity. Since my system has yet to have any data sent to it, these sections, along with the others, look pretty basic. We passed over it earlier, but let's circle back to DXi Advanced Reporting. DXi Advanced Reporting and System Monitoring combines comprehensive performance data logging with powerful visual reporting and analysis tools to help you identify potential problems and optimize system operation. It includes powerful visual reporting and analysis tools to help identify what's going on inside a DXi system. You can also see a historical view of your data to see how your data statistics change over days, weeks, months, or longer. This may help in identifying trends or determine when a problem began. Performance data is continually logged in the background so that on-demand reporting is possible. These reports allow you to check the current system status or for any time period since data logging began on the DXi. You can access DXi Advanced Reporting from the DXi GUI just below the menu on the left-hand side. In this particular example, I am using Chrome, and I get a warning that Advanced Reporting requires Adobe Flash Player to display. Since Flash is baked into Chrome, I can click on this icon at the top, which is the letter I in a circle, and go down to Enable Flash on this page. After that, I can reload the page, and DXi Advanced Reporting will display correctly. The DXi Advanced Reporting GUI has a few different main sections, so let's cover those quickly, working from top to bottom. You can click on the Home icon to go back to your DXi system, the question mark for help, or log off the system entirely. Under the Reports menu, you can access data about capacity, space reclamation, and more. View and Action menu controls are mirrored below in the toolbar for quick access. Unless the toolbar is collapsed, toggle that using the arrow on the right-hand side. Below that is the system information. Next is the timeline. This is where you can dial in a specific time range for your charts to display. Finally, you have the charts filled with data. These charts will change depending on the type of report and the time range selected. Here is an example graph regarding used disk space showing the amount of used and free capacity on the system. If used disk space, shown in light blue, exceeds the critical disk space threshold, red line as shown here, the DXi would enter a critical disk space management mode. You do not want to enter this mode because, among other things, the DXi will automatically slow down the ingest rate. Here is another graph example, this time showing the reduction ratio. The light blue line shows the reduction factor for deduplication, the green shows the reduction factor for compression, and the dark blue line shows the total reduction factor. Reduction ratio increases or improves over time as more data is processed because a lower percentage of stored data will be unique. This example shows a declining reduction ratio, which is not typical. The red arrow indicates roughly the start of the change. Maybe a change in the backup application method of sending data occurred then. It might mean that multiplexing, compression, or encryption was enabled. Or maybe a new, completely different dataset was added to the backup. In this final example, the dark blue is ingested data before reduction, the forest green color is the data after reduction, and the neon green line is the amount of unique data. Right now, this system is achieving a data reduction ratio of nearly 7.5 to 1, which is pretty good. Now, this was just a quick snapshot of what DXi Advanced Reporting can do. I'd encourage you to visit quantum.com and find your specific model of DXi. There you will find more information regarding advanced reporting for your particular system. So now that you better understand the graphic user interface, let's cover some best practices regarding the configuration of your DXi. For best practices, you'll want to have a firm grasp on 5 specific areas to get the full benefit out of your DXi deployment. First, you'll want to know where to go for further information about your system. Our documentation centers are full of very specific information and walkthroughs. Additionally, you will want to know about bonding, the scheduling of events, and even replication throttling. Then we'll wrap up this section with space management tips. So where can you find documentation for your DXi system? If you navigate to quantum.com, hover over Support at the top, and then select Documentation, you will then be delivered to the Documentation portal. Here, you can scroll down and select your system. If your system isn't shown in the upper section with the pictures, look down below. We are constantly migrating content over to a new system that packs a bunch of features. These products are next in line to get migrated to the new system. In these doc centers, you can find guides covering a wide range of topics, training videos, and more. If you can't find it easily, the search bar will certainly help you find what you need. Speaking of videos, there are numerous videos that will walk you through DXi-related tasks like configuring network settings or configuring OST direct to tape. So be sure to take advantage of these resources. Whether you're using Veeam, NetBackup, Simpana, or others, check the documentation portal mentioned earlier for best practice guides. So, what is bonding? Ethernet bonding aggregates multiple ports into a single group by combining the bandwidth of multiple ports into a single port. For example, if you bonded three 1 gigabit Ethernet ports into a single 3 gigabit Ethernet logical port, you would have the equivalent of one interface with 3 gigabits of aggregate throughput. A benefit of bonding is that it provides fault tolerance. You can lose one physical connection from the bond and still maintain connectivity. Here is a screenshot of the bonding details section from the GUI. On this particular DXi 6900, I have 7 Ethernet ports that I can configure. 2 or more physical ports of the same link speed can be bonded. No mixing or matching port speeds. On this DXi system, I have 3 1 gigabit Ethernet ports and 4 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. I can only bond the ports in the yellow callout with each other, likewise for the green. There are 3 different kinds of bonding. Mode 0 is round robin, Mode 1 is active backup, and Mode 4 is LACP. If you make changes to the bonding settings, you must configure the connected network switch to match. Please refer to the Configuration section of the User's Guide for your DXi system for technical details related to these bonding modes. Settings that negatively affect the effectiveness of the DXi are compression, deduplication on the client side, encryption, and multi-threading. It is highly recommended that you turn off these settings in the backup application. Another setting worth knowing about is replication throttling. Replication throttling limits the amount of source replication data a DXi sends to avoid exceeding a specified bandwidth limit. The purpose of this is to reserve sufficient resources for ingestion and other tasks more critical than replication. You can schedule replication throttling to control the amount of network bandwidth required by source replication to run at a particular time. Keep in mind that scheduled throttling overrides constant throttling if it is configured. This example advanced reporting graph shows the effect of replication throttling on Ethernet activity of a DXi. At the point marked by the arrow, replication was enabled with a limit of 2.2 megabytes per second. From that point on, we don't see any Ethernet activity above that limit. Regardless of the DXi systems in your configuration, disk space management is one of the most important factors. Let's quickly cover space reclamation, compaction, capacity monitoring, and disk usage. So what is space reclamation? It is a process that identifies data that no longer needs to be retained and can be reclaimed by the system. This is also a normal result of backup expiration policies. This process is key to the successful operation of a DXi. Default space reclamation occurs at 1 p.m., but you can modify this to any time you'd like. Ideally, this should occur about an hour after a backup occurs. You do, however, want this process to complete within a 24-hour period. In the screenshot shown, it was able to run in 7 seconds, but no space was reclaimed in this particular instance. Effective use of backup expiration policies and space reclamation will help keep your DXi system out of the low space condition, which can be difficult to recover from. Space reclamation can be scheduled, and Quantum recommends that you run this process daily. While it may be obvious, it is certainly easier to run this process on a day's worth of new data than it is to do so with a week's worth of new data. Try not to schedule this while another operation is running on the system to take full advantage of system resources and to avoid any issues. Capacity monitoring can be vital to a properly running system. A best practice would be to maintain at least 20% free space on your system. This leaves working space for ingest and processing. Should your DXi not have this working space or reach full capacity, it can be very difficult to resume normal operation. You can avoid this in part by scheduling space reclamation at daily intervals like we discussed, but just don't schedule or run manually during a backup. A low space state on the system will automatically run reclamation and compaction. When monitoring your capacity, there are two types of space: free space and reclaimable space. Free space is disk space that has never been used or reclaimable space that has been compacted. Free space can be used for deduplicated or non-deduplicated data. Reclaimable space is previously used disk space but no longer referenced by a tag. This space becomes a candidate for return to free space by compaction, and it may be immediately used for new deduplicated data without compaction. If the DXi is configured with non-deduplicated shares, the DXi will automatically compact reclaimable space to create more free space as needed. Like with any technology, bugs get into the system, or maybe a user does something crazy that throws a system into a tailspin. If or when that happens, you might need to interface with Quantum technical support. Let's briefly cover this to help ensure that you get your system back up and running as quickly as possible. Part of interacting with Quantum support is generating and transferring logs to get them the necessary information. Some of the log collections can take several minutes to complete. You will need to download generated logs to a local computer so that you can email or FTP them to Quantum technical support. Earlier we touched on the Utilities menu option. Here are a couple of logs you may need to generate. First is the system diagnostic file. This log contains diagnostic logs for all system components. Simply click on Generate New, and the log will generate just like what is shown here. Next is the storage array diagnostics file. This log contains diagnostic logs for any storage arrays. This log is not applicable to DXi V1000 or 4000 deployments. Next is the DSET report. This log contains status information about the DXi server node. Again, this log is not applicable to DXi V1000 or 4000 deployments. Also, this report should only be run under the direction of Quantum technical support. Additionally, DXi advanced reporting logs can prove helpful in troubleshooting issues. Use the DB export button from the DXi advanced reporting GUI to generate this log. Regardless of your issue, it is important to pass along all information that is available from the DXi, including any changes made to the configuration or network leading up to the issue. To start the process with Quantum technical support, navigate to quantum.com/OSR. Here, you can manage service requests with Quantum. You can log and track service requests on all your Quantum DXi products, as well as add attachments and receive email real-time updates on service requests. Storage Care Guardian is a software agent that securely links Quantum hardware and the diagnostic data from the surrounding storage ecosystem to Quantum's global services team for remote service and administration. Storage Care Guardian employs web interfaces for secure two-way communications between the DXi and Quantum Service Center. This allows Quantum technical support to perform remote device administration, desktop sharing, diagnostics, and data visualization. For security, you can define the level of access you want to allow Storage Care Guardian to have. This can range from log gathering only to full access to the web interface and the command line. Among other benefits, Storage Care Guardian can relieve you of the task of collecting and transferring the log files that I covered in some of the previous slides. As we wrap up, I just want to reinforce where you can find additional information for your specific DXi. Technical documentation, tutorial videos, and more are available through the documentation portal. If you need to submit a ticket or speak to Quantum technical support, you'll find that information on our support homepage. Also, with a valid serial number, you can browse the Quantum knowledge base, which contains problem resolution scenarios, troubleshooting information for specific issues, and more. Thanks again for your time.